What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're going to be recapping the June Joust Tournament Finals, and it ended in a spectacular fashion, ended in a reverse sweep, and then the other matches were kind of meh. Let's just be honest, they were not the best, but the finals proved to be fantastic. It was a good time overall. We had some different things happen. A lot of it kind of went as most people suspected it would. I kind of went in a different direction with that, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. Thanks to everyone out there who's been supporting me. Greatly, greatly appreciated. If you're new, thanks a lot for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on throughout the year, whether we have tournaments or whatever. It kind of determines what's going on, or if we have some news breaking or something like that. But thank you for stopping by. Please hit a like, hit a subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. That would be fantastic. All right, so let's talk about the tournament. We kind of briefly touched on it. We had a fantastic ending. The rest of the tournament was kind of meh. It seems to be like, it's a hero pool thing. It's teams that can't run certain things without certain heroes and all that. And even though they got to the tournament, they run into roadblocks and things that they can't really, I wouldn't say figure out, but the things that they can't really get through in a match. The first 2 matches, the second of the first day of matches went a little bit differently than I thought it was going to. The first one, of course, I had Atlanta. Everybody pretty much had Atlanta. New York was kind of outmatched in this. They kind of lucked into it, but they got there. They did some things that they had to do. They didn't look terrible. They just looked inexperienced and a little bit young and maybe a little bit overmatched by some of the teams that were in here, including, Atlanta and Shanghai. Atlanta looked great in the first match. I thought it was a potentially a telltale sign for what was to come with them, that they would move forward, maybe get into the finals like I thought they would. I thought they were a little bit better than Shanghai, at least in this meta, and it looked like it early on. Dallas absolutely smoked Shanghai the first time. They just, whatever comp that Shanghai was running, they were running one with Soldier and stuff like that. It just wasn't working, and Dallas put an end to that very fast. The one thing that Shanghai did and their coaches did is they adapted. They figured out what they needed to do and they moved on, and they had New York in the lower bracket as their first match. But before that, we had Dallas taking on the Reign, and I thought the Reign were going to keep it close. I thought the Reign would do a bottom bracket run. I didn't think they were going to beat Dallas at all in this tournament. The desk went crazy, and they're like, well, we're going to take Atlanta and all this stuff. I was like, I don't see it. I know they were playing well. I thought they were going to keep it close. Like I said, I had this 3-2, but Dallas just did what they do. They came out, they dictated the match. They put Atlanta in the positions that they didn't want to be in it, and they just kind of just steamrolled Atlanta in that. And then, of course, in the lower bracket, we had Shanghai taking on New York. They disposed of them rather quickly. And one of the things is Fate picked up ball somewhere. And, he didn't pick it up. He hadn't played that much last year, and he played it off and on spotty, because over on the East, they do play it a little bit. He wasn't playing a ton of it, really, if at all, recently. One of the things that I've noticed is them running ball. He is really good with the pile driver engage, and they were just doing some things. Him and Fleta really had a thing going. Coming into this match, the next one, with Atlanta, I thought Atlanta, they kind of seemed boomed a little bit. I don't know what it is about that. If you lose the second round match, or I guess the winner's bracket first match, they really had a similar fate that Florida had, where they just kind of crumbled eventually. They, took care of. It just felt like they were like a little bit boomed to me. But Shanghai came out and they run in the comp that they were running with the ball, and then doing it with the Lucio Moira, and then Fleta and on Echo and Lip on Reaper started working really well. and then we get to the finals, and we're going to spend more time on the finals than anything else in this. I just wanted to go over the other matches really quick. Now, going into this, me and everybody else, I'm sure, had the Shanghai has a chance. Now, if you remember from the previews, and I didn't have Shanghai being in this position necessarily, but what I said Shanghai needed to do, which they didn't do in the first match, is dictate the aggression and the speed in the match. And from the start of this match, I was saying if they can pick the pace up and dish out aggression instead of being reactionary, they're going to do some damage in this match. They're going to make a match out of it. And unfortunately to start, it was not the case. Dallas came out and it looked like it was going to be the normal Dallas thing that they did to them a couple days earlier, where they just rolled over them. Now, they hadn't seen them play this type of comp yet, but the first two maps were god-awful for Shanghai. It looked bad. They lost Lijiang 2-0, and they didn't even get anything on Volskaya. Just outmatched in both of them, and I was very, very concerned. Now, the one map that I thought that was going to be putting this into a realm for the fuel that Shanghai wouldn't be able to catch up on was Numbani. Dallas is good on Numbani, and just the way that they were playing, it just seemed inevitable that they were going to win this. But Shanghai got it up, and they took this map, and it was behind Fate playing ball and Fleta playing off of that. And it just, every point in from here on out, it just became a war. And it was amazing to watch. Like live. I watched it live, and then I had to watch it again, and I watched it a couple more times. Here, watching different maps and saying what exactly happened on that. But watching it live here, it was probably somewhere around 12:30, and I think it ended at like 1. It was a long match. It was 7 maps. But here's where the tide starts to turn in favor of Shanghai, kind of. And I don't want to say that Dallas looked bad in this. There was an opportunity for both teams to win every map from here on out. Maybe Numbani, Shanghai was a little bit better, but Dallas still kept it close. In the next map on Rialto, Dallas wins 4-3, and they go up 3-1, and just a banger of a map. They both completed. Dallas had a little bit more time in the bank, and they just did things that they do. And it's a lot of it's Doha, and unsung hero for Dallas in this whole tournament really was Jexe. He, playing the Lucio in this map, so many times fights could have been won by Shanghai earlier, or maybe at all, and it kept Dallas in the map. He was booping Fate out of the pile drive engages, which was huge. The initial pile drive engage, which then sets up Fleta to do things, or Doha, or a lot of times we got pile drive with the Death Blossom. Eventually, we see Fearless switch over to Ball because Fate was taking over the match, and the monkey just wasn't working. He wasn't able to keep up with what Fate was doing, and a lot of that had to do with when he would engage on Fearlessness, when he would engage in on Monkey, Fate was just left to his own devices to go in the backline and just pile drive and do all the annoying ball things that people do, you do when you're playing ball. He just had no way to counter what he was doing, and it was becoming a nightmare. So they switched, and the Dallas started to, even though that they won this map, I could feel it slipping here because they just got this sense of like tightness, or like, oh shit, they're not fucking around. They're not laying down. Atlanta laid down at a certain point. Well, maybe not laid down. They knew they had Atlanta's number. They thought they had Shanghai's number, and Shanghai figured out what they were doing and then started to do more and do things different to engage them and to counteract what Dallas does with this comp that's tailor-made for the way they play, with no hit scan and all that. Continually throughout that map, they both teams fought, and it just trades back and forth. But Dallas comes out and wins 3-1. You're going, oh, okay, it was a nice story. It looks like they were coming back, but And then we have Busan, where Shanghai wins 2-1. Dallas takes the first point. I wouldn't say easily. I think Shanghai flipped it once, but they had the alt economy down on this one. And just the way that they were playing the first map, I was like, okay, so we got 4-1. Shanghai comes out, and they come back. They win City, and then they win Mecha Base. And pretty handily, a couple of flips here and there, but they got things on track, and they figured out a rhythm. They figured out what Dallas was doing to the point where they also started getting really good at knowing when to use their ults. There was a point in, I don't know if it was nerves or what, or he just fat fingered Q, but it looked like he got baited. Izzyaki convalescenced a little early on at the temple part of Busan. That just knocked them out of the alt economy war, which you need these convalescences and bombs and all they eventually got it under control in line. And Dallas is starting to grip here, because now you're at 3-2 going into Eichenwald. Shanghai started off kind of okay. They take it all the way in from what I remember. I know they got a pretty good ways in. They slow down Dallas and almost stop them before they get to point B. And they had to have a clutch performance by, I think it was Doha had a great Death Blossom, and we saw some more legs from Fleta. He almost ended it on Attack Visor, of all things. He's not afraid to pull the legs out, and you gotta admire that from Fleta. Occasionally, it is a viable pick to not just to get to a point like people used to pick May and just go to the point in ice block and things like that, mostly on assault maps, but like stalling tactics. But he came out on the legs, and you're like, all right, yeah, he's gonna just kind of trying to slow him down. He almost won the map for him right there. So they lose that, and then going into the final phase in the castle, it looked like Dallas had gained some momentum. Sparkle made a couple of big plays on Doomfist, and then I believe Fate had another one of his big pile driver engages, and then it was chaos and bedlam, and there were bombs going off everywhere, and eventually Shanghai won that. Let's take it to where we're at. All right, we're tied 3-3, and at this point, I am going to I'm not going to lie with this. I had the feeling that Shanghai was going to win. They had Dallas on their back foot. And yes, Dallas has lost, but in pressure situations, in money matches, they have not lost a match. And they've looked dominating in every one of them. So I think for Dallas, they got punched in the face, and it was a little hard to recover. They didn't play badly, but it was a sense of slipping. What that was forcing them into were positions that they don't normally put themselves into, which is being a little too aggressive and panicky to an extent. I'm not going to call it crazy, just all out bedlam panic, like running around and getting just killed. But they were doing some things that, like, maybe forcing plays, trying to make a hero play that they shouldn't, and getting caught out. And Shanghai was doing the same thing, especially on this map where it was just so crucial to get everything as far as you could. Now, Shanghai just rolled over them on point A. They had eons of time to get through point B, and Dallas took control of the high ground on the stairs and just were taking it to them. They were just, Jexay, once again, had like 2 or 3 boops that were like crucial. I think he booped Doha while he was Death Blossoming out of the way, and just got him like into a position where he could do nothing. And he booped Fate a couple of times out of big engages that they were trying to get them off that high ground. And it took a couple of big plays from Fleta and Izzyaki with convalescences and some just great timings on when he was using his ult and stuff like that. And Lip to an extent, extending stuff where Lip also in this. Now they got past checkpoint B with time, and they still had more time going into the final push there. Lip went on a crazy flank trying to use his, he had a Death Blossom, and he got caught out. And that was awful because it cost them taking it in all the way, and it would have made it a lot safer and easier for them to finish the match. They would have had a lot more leeway, if you want to call it that, to make a mistake here or there if they took it all the way in, because you have to. That's a tough map to get it in. It's one of those snowbally situation maps, Junkertown, where most of the time you get it at least past checkpoint B. You get it into the final push there before the big turbine, and usually things stall out right about there. Or teams just snowball all the way through. It's kind of like Rialto has the same vibe like that too. But Lip made an error there, but it didn't cost them the match, which was a good thing. It did cost them some more, maybe a chance at getting it all the way in. And I was a little concerned, but I wasn't terribly concerned because of the way that they were playing, the aggressiveness that they brought out. In the last 3 maps of this match, the aggressor was not Dallas, it was Shanghai. Dallas was playing defensively and they were playing well, but Shanghai was dictating the match, like I said, they needed to do if they wanted to have a chance in hell staying with Dallas even, not let alone beat them. And they brought out the aggression and the speed and all of the things that I said they needed to do. They figured it out, and that's how you beat Dallas. You have to be calculated aggressive, not just stupid aggressive. Sometimes, like Atlanta does things like that, where they go in too hard, or some other teams, Florida, for instance, they overextend. Shanghai has players that are smart enough to take it to the limit, but pull back. Quite a few times, especially in this last push on Junkertown, they did that, where they just slowed Dallas down. And that's, you don't have to stop them at point A, but they got him to. I mean, yeah, it's optimal if you're on the defensive team. Yeah, you want to stop before A, but even if you slow them down, when you had a decent amount of time bank, if you get them into a position where they have to rush and try and get to that door in a hurry to try and match what you were doing, even though they stalled out eventually, but. The less time they have, obviously, it works in your favor. So they slow them down, and once again, Fate doing a lot of work. Lip did a lot of work too in this, and Fleta, they were the whole team was playing fantastic. Li Jiagong had a couple of big boops and so hit his sombra barriers a couple of times right on the money. Got a couple of kills because that's what he does. But Dallas eventually gets it in a point A, and one of the things that I didn't understand, they had control of the high ground. Yeah, you want to move the cart and you have limited time. They did have limited time. They had like a minute and a half or something like that. They dropped down off the high ground before the first fight, and I was a little concerned about that. I wanted them to stay because I knew Izayaki had Cole. They might have been able to endure it, boop him out, or just, knock him into a position where he wouldn't have done as much damage or, slowed their progress down. And yes, you do have to move the cart. That is the obvious thing. And, Fearless was doing a very, very good job of harassing Fate and slowing him down on the last map. He did have some big engages and things like that, but Jaxay was taking care of some of that with boops, and Fearless was chasing him around the map and just harassing him. I was starting to get the feeling, once I get to point A before that first fight, I was like, well, maybe Dallas does win this. But once I saw them drop down and the aggression that the Dragons used from that point on, I knew they were done. They were just battering Dallas. They had the ult economy advantage, and even when they didn't, they would disengage, especially during Cole, disengage when they could, and then go back in harder than they did before, which was fantastic. They would lose somebody, they wouldn't freak out and stop the engagement because one person was down. They would knuckle up and take care of business. And I don't think Dallas was ready for that. They weren't ready for that level of aggression that they were putting out, the Dragons, towards the end of the last 3-4 maps in this series. And I think that's what took the Dragons to the win in this. They were being the aggressor. They were doing the things that they hadn't done in the first match against Dallas and the first 2 maps against Dallas. I mean, Dallas won 5 maps in a row against them. And that's not counting the last time they played it, they made it close, but it was still 4-2, and you knew kind of in that match you could see Dallas just doing Dallas things, and this time that did not happen. It was fantastic adaptations by the Dragons. Moon did a not Moon things, and it looked like it, when they fled on legs and all that, but they were trying something. It didn't work. They adjusted. They added in the speed boosting and the versatility with Echo and Reaper that they needed to stop this kind of this rushy comp thing, and they just took care of business. I mean, you lose 5 maps in a row to a team, and then you turn around and you beat them. That is some clutch stuff there. And I don't think either team has anything to be ashamed of. Right now, 2 best teams in the league, for sure. Dallas has something to look down upon. Maybe they could have made a couple of different adjustments here and there and won this match. But Shanghai was the team that won these gritty, knuckle busting brawls that were going on in this match. A lot of these fights could have gone either way. They were traded back and forth. I mean, even towards the end, Lip had to have a little redemption arc towards the end and take 2. I think had 3 kills that sealed during the overtime on Junkertown to seal the match. So without that, Dallas could have still been moving and potentially won. So I mean, these guys are making big plays here and there. And all over the place, actually, and for both teams. Like I said, Jexay had big plays. Doha had some Death Blossoms that were insane. Sparkle was playing, he came in on a Doomfist. He did some work. He did some work on Echo the whole match, and Fearless was playing well, and it was just a great match to watch. I mean, I don't know how many times Hanmin got kills on stupid Remix. For the love of God, people, anymore, don't stand next to the diva. They were trying to do that, I think it was on Eichenwald, and it actually got Dallas a slight advantage for a minute. Where Izayaki, they were fucking around trying to stagger the diva, and he got mech'd. He remech'd and killed Izayaki, and they had no heals going in. But luckily, they were on the last point of Eichenwald, and the spawn doors aren't too far away. But still, you lose the war of your ult economy. But this was such a well-played match after the second map. So the first 2 maps were garbage. Dallas was just doing Dallas things. And you could sway it however you want. Yeah, there was signs and this and that. They were feeling it out. Dallas came in and they just grabbed him by the fucking throat. But luckily, Shanghai had none of it. And I'm so impressed with what they did. And I'm impressed with Dallas, too. Because this was what high-level Overwatch is supposed to be. The end, like the last few maps of this, where the teams you don't know who's going to come out on top. You're not going, well, this team doesn't have anyone that can play the Reaper, or, they can't do this, or, where I'm going. These were 2 teams that were the obvious best teams in their region, battling it out. Now we have 2 tournaments in. Dallas won one. Shanghai wins the other one in spectacular comeback fashion. Reminiscent to me of that the stage 1 where, London came back against New York. It had that vibe to it. Just 2 teams that were so good, battling it out. And one figured something out and drove it home, even though they were down. And this was one of those matches, and thank God, because it was fairly dull throughout the beginning of this tournament itself, and the matches during the course of the June Joust tournament, the qualifiers and all that, were very, very one-sided, a lot of 3-0s. There was, I think it was, and I had said this, I think it was it might have been week 2 or 3. I think the losing teams out of all the matches took 3 maps. So that's how bad it was. Maybe 4. But still, I mean, you have 10, 12 matches in a weekend, and you get 4 maps taken by opposing teams. A lot of it had to do with the level of teams, who they were playing and all that, but still, it's still bad. But now we're done with this iteration of hero pools. We go back to all the heroes available for the Summer Showdown, and that's going to be interesting. I just want to throw out a congratulations to the Dragons. Hard-fought, well-earned victory over the Dallas Fuel, who have nothing to be ashamed of in that match. They were fantastic as well. That was great Overwatch in that last match. I loved every minute of it. And it drives me to watch this esport, this league. This is why I love this game. Just watching competitors and do things the way they did in this final match of the June Joust tournament. Overall impressions for that match were great. The rest of it was kind of meh. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. All of your support has been greatly, greatly appreciated throughout the season and before that and, beyond when we keep going. And we're going to have some more stuff coming up. I'm going to do, obviously, we're going to start getting ready for the Summer Showdown. We'll have some stuff later in the week, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But we're going to do some mid-season things before that, actually. We're going to do some power rankings and maybe some mid-season grades, teams, what we think of the teams when we're at the halfway point, which is hard to believe we're already here, but we are. But that's going to do it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you on the next one.